All right, welcome back. Next episode of the Mansformation podcast. Myself and James here again. Today we are going to be discussing nutrition strategies because this is probably the area when most people come into the program, right, and they haven't got a clue where to start. There's so much information out there, it just creates overwhelm. Should I be doing a keto? Should I be doing a carnivore? Should I be doing, should I be calorie counting? Should I be doing intermittent fasting? There's so much stuff out there and no one really knows, what the right way is for them. So we wanted to kind of go through a couple of different nutrition strategies and certainly the sort of process that we would take people through to help them, essentially just get a much better relationship with food so that actually this overwhelming anxiety that so many guys have when it comes to nutrition, it becomes a thing of the past.
Yeah, so 100%. So it's, again, starting from the top, seeing where they're at in terms of current habits. So obviously when we originally speak to someone, I will ask them to outlay what an average day looks like, just so I can see in terms of where they're at in terms of food quality, where the protein might be at. Always ask the question, have you tracked macros? What have you done in the past? Because most people do come to us and say, I've tried absolutely everything. And without sounding negative to that, you can't have tried everything because there is something there that will work. You've just not tried the appropriate thing. So it's just getting an understanding of where they've been, what their level is. So it's like in certain nutritional protocols, they can split clients like a level 1, a level 2, a level 3. And a level 3 would be someone that knows what a protein is, know what a macro is, know what a calorie is, and just knows the ins and outs of good nutrition. Whereas a level 1 is some people that we might coach currently that just come on and they've just not, some people we do at the minute, like they don't know what a protein is or they don't know what a calorie is. So it's, for us at that moment, it's like, right, how do we get them progressing and seeing some results without actually causing any overwhelm of like, go track this or go do this or go do that?
Yeah, we don't need to get too technical with them. Sometimes it's a case of, depending how poor the diet is at the moment, it might be just a case of, okay, can we stop takeaways on a Friday? Can we do something else on a Friday? Especially, or maybe on a weekend or whatever it might be. It's, can we just cut that out? And that alone, that one change, is going to be a step forward. And this is kind of why we moved away from the short-term 12-week get shredded programs to like a long-term lifestyle one-to-one coaching program, because sometimes it takes a good few weeks to just gradually implement these strategies that don't cause just too much overwhelm, because if you're saying to everyone, look, we're going to make wholesale changes here, all right, you're going to be on this diet, you're going to be counting these calories, you're going to be weighing your food out here, you're going to be stopping doing all this stuff that you've been doing for probably years, and it's just too overwhelming. And again, it just leads to people going, sod this, I can't do this, it's not for me. So we've got to kind of sometimes just take it step by step, and it could be just a case of we're not even looking at particularly adding foods or changing foods. We maybe just say, look, can we just cut this one thing out, or could we just make this one change here? And sometimes that's the way you've got to go. Some people come in fired up and they do want to make, they've got very specific goals and they want to, maybe they already have a good base of understanding about nutrition and stuff like this. But, some of them, it's a case of you have to take it slowly. And again, it comes down to patience, as a lot of things do with this. You have to have patience and trust in the process. And it might be just a case of, look, for the next 2 weeks, we're just going to cut X out, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And, just gradually improve a little bit more every single week.
So that's obviously when we get the clients to fill questionnaires out, I ask them to rate themselves of like, are you an intermediate, a novice, of where are you at in terms of macro, like nutritional understanding from food quality to macronutrients and stuff like that. When they rate themselves, it gives me a better understanding. And like you say, we have people that come in and they've already got a very, very good, and they just need that little refinement, and they will get a completely different approach because that's right for them. And that will just push them forward and excel their results. But yeah, like Stu said, it's not always just like throwing loads of stuff in to overwhelm people. Like, just get rid of certain things, or like, right, can you just add protein to every meal that you're eating? Like commonly, and I get this quite a lot with the guys that we coach because they're always in that service stations, right, so I'll just go eat a sandwich, like from a shop, and I'm like, right, I've got one thing that I want you to do in this first week. And this is hard as a coach because then like, is that all you want me to do? It's like, just make that sandwich at home. Well, why? Because you're in control of the ingredients that you're putting in it. You're also removing the opportunity of you walking in Tesco's and getting blindsided by all the chocolate and all the snacks and going, oh, I won't get that and I'll get something worse. So it's like, I call it a pack up, and I'm like, I probably sound like school kids when I say it to them, but it's like, you be in control of what you've got on your day. If you're going back to London there and back in the day in the car, you can take a sandwich in that car with you. So I don't want you to change the meal. I want you to change the process that it's made in. Yeah. There's less additives, there's less crap in it. Right, that's fine. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. Your energy's better. you're in control. And then that also then drives like, well, you know what, if I'm cooking chicken breast and making a sandwich, I'll just put it with rice instead of bread, or put it with potatoes, or put it with salad. Like, you're then more
starting
inclined.
to stack habits, though. You're starting to stack the habits of, again, just actually, instead of just eating for convenience and grabbing something, they are, like you say, in control of making their own food. And essentially, anyone that wants a really, really good physique or wants to be in much better shape, probably not going to be able to do it living out of service stations and eating just on the go. So there's going to be a level of preparation that goes into that, whether that's them preparing the food, whether that's getting a meal prep company into doing it, whether that's getting a partner to help them out with that side of things if they're busy. But there's different plans, different strategies that we would use. And so we want to talk you through the pros and the cons of the different ways that you can approach your nutrition plan. So the first one is a strict meal plan. Okay. Now, for me, this is the way that I like to work because that bodybuilding background, I like to know my food's the same all the time. If I'm really trying to push for a good result, my food's going to be the same all the time. I want to know the weight it is. I want to know the time I'm eating it. I want to know that I want that regimented sort of routine and structure, because that allows me to be able to tweak and maneuver it a little bit better once we get to the end of the week. Lost 2 pounds. Okay, cool. We'll keep as we are. Or we haven't lost anything. Okay, I'll pull a little carbs from there, or I'll change a little bit with this and pull the calories down, whatever it might be. I just prefer to do that. And for me, that's the way that you get the fastest result, because you're able to fully understand everything that you're doing, and when you're trying to make them changes to progress, it's much, much easier. Okay, but there is obviously a downside to that as well.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of people just struggle with, in terms of a restriction side, and it's not so much the restriction side. People struggle that, what do I do when I don't eat them? Or that's on my plan. So what we commonly see is like someone might do one and they'll go out for a meal on a Saturday night and they've checked in and gone, oh, so I ate all my 4 meals and then I went out for a CGI's. There's a poor example, but it's like, no, that shouldn't have been the way. And I was like, oh, well, that's what I did. So it 100% quickest results in the quickest time that's the way to go. But people just don't also learn along the way of the knowledge of the nutrition. They know that them 4 or 5 meals on that plan work, but beyond that, they don't know like what protein I'm having, why am I having it. So it's just trying to educate them along the process as well. And if that's for them, just giving them a little bit of freedom every now and then and supporting them through that they can go off and do a little bit, and then we can revert back to that over time.
I suppose as well, though, it's a lack of variety. Like, again, I don't give a shit. I'll do the same thing every day, all day. I don't care. Do you know what I mean? If I'm trying to get a result, that's all I care about, right? So, but some people, if they've come from just eating convenience food as and when they feel hungry, grabbing what they feel like when they feel like, to be told to a structured meal plan that you're going to have this every day for breakfast and this is going to be lunch, people just don't like that as well, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's like you say, is there no else? And they put too much pressure on it. And like you say, you've done that for years, and that's the best way. And I think for any client over time, as we would like to set them through a journey, we would love them to get that point that they know that much around nutrition and they've got the good boundaries with it, that they could at some point, if they go, I've got a holiday in 8 weeks and I want to look unreal, that we're confident and go, right, well, we'll just eat this. Like, you know why you're eating it, you know what it is. All we're doing is refining you and just giving you an example. That is the end goal. Like you say, people take years to get there, and people just, I think they can cause restriction in their own mind. Yeah,
exactly. So the other option, I suppose, from that is to have a meal plan, but have different options. And again, this is, not a bad way to go. Some people, and it depends on the lifestyle as well, because some people, I think most people probably eat the same thing for breakfast all the time, right? A lot of people eat the same thing for lunch. It's just that some people's breakfast is a bowl of cereal followed by a meal deal. They just have the same thing every day, right? So, actually locking down a good quality breakfast and a good quality lunch, and then allowing them potentially a certain amount of calories or certain structured meals that, okay, you can have this recipe or that recipe on an evening for when they want to eat with family. Okay, some people prefer to do that. Some people prefer to eat super strict on a plan Monday to Friday, but be allowed a little bit more freedom on a weekend. And again, it just comes down to lifestyle. And if you're not the sort of person that can stick to an exact rigid meal plan, sticking to one for, at least half the time, at least, maybe 60, 70% of the time, and then having that little bit of leeway can help it integrate into their lifestyle a little bit.
So I think that's quite a common one and quite a popular one with the guys that we coach, because a lot of them family men. So it's like, well, I'm at work, for convenience, for ease, I might as well just take the same things. I don't mind it. Right, stick to that. And then obviously you've got your freedom in the evening. But what we need to do is we need to know how many calories you're having, or at least that it's got good protein and good quality food. And it's like you're not then having to sit down with a family and eat something completely different. But again, there's got to be restraint showed with that. And it's not a case that kids are having burger and chips, so I'm having burger and chips. But that 100% is, again, having the most simple foods on repeat is going to make your journey so much easier, because you're removing the thinking process behind every single decision that you've got to make.
Yeah, and again, for the guys that are coming, new to this, I would always say go to a strict meal plan straight away. If you can, I would always like to go to a strict meal plan all the time for the first couple of weeks, just to kind of create a baseline of where you're at. Okay, and again, once we can see what this plan does to you for a couple of weeks, we can then make some adjustments as needed to see where you go. If they start on this, it's good because they've got a lot of structure within the day, which they probably didn't have before, which is, again, one step forward, and it's a progress. But sometimes these meals with family or weekends of not being as on plan, they can then lead to overeating, consuming the wrong types of food, this sort of stuff, because they're not really that educated on the process at that point.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they go to someone else's house for this meal, and it's like, oh, I wasn't really in control of it. They made me curry chips and 4 naan breads.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but could we have been a little bit better? Could we have asked them questions so we know a little bit more? So again, it is the knowledge thing, and I totally agree, the whole creating that baseline of getting someone's weight to either maintain or downtrend. We know where they're at, and we know whether they need to go up or whether to come down in calories. While someone's just chopping and changing and they've got no data, we'd like you say, we don't know where someone is in creating a deficit or creating a surplus, and it's very hard to coach through that.
Yeah, and obviously, I suppose what the meal plan with options is, it's essentially it's the strict meal plan combined with the next thing, which is calorie counting, and some people like to just calorie count. Okay, now again, there's these apps. Obviously, the Mansformation app's got a facility to do it. There's so many apps now, like your MyFitnessPal, that most people would know, that can do that. And you can just enter the food you're in, scan a barcode, whatever it might be, and it's going to tell you how many calories that you've had, and it'll also break down all the macros and stuff like this, which is great. Again, it gives you the data that you need. Okay, and this is the thing. It's like it's like anything. It's like running a business. You need to know the numbers. Okay, you're building a physique, you need to know the numbers. You can't just guess at these things. Otherwise, it's not going to stack up at the end of the day. So, I suppose the downside with it is that people get pissed off having to get the phone out and track stuff all the time. And then if they're not being consistent with it, this is where it kind of falls apart.
Yeah, and I think as well, we're tracking, a lot of people don't put the prior prep into it. So it's like, go back to the meal plan. You've kind of got to use that ethos and look every single day and go, right, what am I having tomorrow, and prep that ahead of the time. And so many clients we've had that will come in and like rattle track, and it's like, where do you feel like the biggest restraint was, or the biggest issue? Well, I just got up and I just scanned this and I scanned that and it didn't work, or it didn't fit my mark. It's like, yeah, it's not going to, because you're not putting proper planning into it. You're not putting the respect on that it needs.
You can't just wing it. It's not like, oh, I'm just eating this and tracking and then expect it all to add up to the right numbers at the end of the day. You've got to be able to say, okay, tomorrow this is what I think I'm going to have. And there might be the odd time when I got totally caught out at lunch and I had to just grab whatever it was, so I put that in there. But now you've got to then take the information that you've got in there, the lunch that you had that was a little bit off plan, and then adjust dinner to make it fit. So, it's like, a bank account, I suppose. If you get your wages on the first of the month, and you've blown them all by the second, you're going to be in the shit for the rest of the month, right? If you take all your calories for the day and you blow them all by lunchtime, right, well, now you're in a problem for the rest of the day, because what's going to happen? You're going to go hungry for the rest of the day, or you're going to go over calories, okay? And again, if you're trying to be in that deficit, it's going to lead to problems.
And that's, like you say, it can be done day to day or week to week, but I think that's the misconception with calorie counting and tracking, and what people don't do is when they realise that they've not got as much left as what they want, they just stop tracking. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, well, I just want this, don't count, I won't do it. You've got to be truthful, you've got to put it in, and like you say, you've got to put the time and effort into it. And we always say to clients who are tracking, the night before you need to sit down, or even sit down for that week. Like when we see clients, and what I like to see is when they do it, and I can go on, I do the weekly check-in and I look at the week's log for now, and they've already got 50% of the day inputted, because they're having the same breakfast, they're having the same dinner. All they've got to do is input the time. Like, you're so smoothly going to go through this week and see progress, because you put in the right time and effort into what you need to.
Yeah.
It's not just getting up and scanning what's in the fridge and going, oh, that done right, so I'll go to McDonald's.
Well, it comes back down to what we talked about on the previous episodes of planning. And that's essentially what it is, right? You're actually planning for what's going to happen. And like anything, I think you want to achieve something, you need a plan to go with it. And winging it isn't the answer, and people shouldn't just look at calorie counting as winging it, you know. And I suppose the last one really that we've got that people can use is intuitive eating. Now, this is just kind of having a rough understanding about, you know, okay, well, I know that roughly when I have a chicken breast, it's roughly about that size, so I'm going to put that size on. We're not weighing anything, we're not tracking anything. We're just kind of, like you said, obviously going in with intuition of I roughly have that much rice or I roughly have that much potato or whatever it is. That's great for me, I think, because it allows you the freedom to eat what you want when you want. Obviously, you've got to be able to be disciplined enough to choose this intuitive eating from a certain pool of foods. But for me, it's not something that should be done right at the start, because you have to build a base of understanding how much portion size should be. And you're going to only do that by tracking or by following a meal plan, so that you can get a full understanding about, okay, I understand that when I eat a meal this size, I will put weight on, or I will be in a deficit, and so on and so forth. So yeah, while the idea of it and having total freedom and total control is probably where you want to get to eventually, it's not something that can be just done straight off the bat.
No, it's obviously coming off of like years of hard work and, like you say, understanding. A lot of people that are new to this do come in and have misconceptions around nutrition. If you ask the most general population people of like what is good food, people might relay about something that we don't deem as whole good food. So it's like them then intuitively eating. We have so many people that come on board and it's like, talk me through your day, and we can make so many changes, just subtle changes that will improve, and they think they're doing all right. So it's like intuitively eating the wrong things is obviously not what we want. So you've got to build that knowledge, what are good macronutrients, what are whole foods, what's going to serve me, but also what works for you. Because it's like what works for Stu and what works for me ain't going to work for client X. So it's like you've got to work out the food groups that work for your digestive system, for how you perform your energy, and then intuitively eat them. So again, going back to the boring thing of eating repetitive stuff, eating the same things that work, because intuitively eating them, their amounts are never going to stay. If you're constantly chopping and changing packet sizes and portion sizes, you're never going to do it. And in a fat loss phase, it's very, very hard. I think you could intuitively eat and maintain, but when you obviously want to push them results forward, you've always got to measure and get your numbers.
Absolutely. So when people come into the program, or when people are starting to think about cleaning up the diet and cleaning up the food, we have a bit of like an order of importance about which way, or what the process is, what we believe that you should be thinking about first. And the first thing that we always say is food quality. All right. So sometimes, people just assume, the whole calorie in, calorie out. Totally get it. Totally makes sense. But sometimes it's just a case of breaking habits for people. So I will say to people, you can eat from this list of proteins and this list of carbs and this list of fats. It's all good quality whole foods, right? Because we want to focus on food quality. And I'm like, you can eat however much you want. I don't care at this stage right now. Eat as much as you want. And they go, well, I can just eat anything I want. Yeah, that's fine, because you're only eating from this list. All right. You'll find it very hard to overeat on chicken breast and rice or salmon and potatoes and stuff like that. You're going to find it very hard. And even if you do go a little bit over calories, I don't actually care at this point, because what we're trying to do is change the habit from eating ultra processed shite and actually getting you to food that's going to take you forward and get you to where you want to be. Because, not all food quality is the same. And someone that eats, 2,000 calories a day from good quality whole foods, and somebody that eats 2,000 calories a day from, McDonald's and Greggs, they might have the same amount of calories, but the quality of those calories is going to be very, very different. And that is going to lead to very different performance. It's going to lead to how they perform very differently. Okay, there's difference in energy. There's going to be a difference in how the physique looks, and how strong they are, in how well they recover, in how well they sleep, in how much inflammation and bloating there are. There's so many differences, all right? So it's not just a case of, 2,000 calories here and 2,000 calories there. Yeah, if 2,000 calories is a deficit for them, they'll both lose weight. But it's how the body feels, how the body looks, how the body performs that's going to be very, very different. So that's why we always go with, food quality over everything, and that's the first place that we start.
Well, you obviously love to say it, and I think it's so right. Food is fuel. Ultimately, that is all it is, isn't it? And it's like, how many clients have we had over the years that come in and go, God, I'm eating less, and I've just got so much more energy. And it's like, yeah, because eat 5,000 calories of the wrong stuff, your body can't burn it down quick enough to actually use it as energy anyway. So that's why you go through all the slumps that you do. So it's like, again, when people come in, clients in the past, it's like, I'm not going to give you any macros or any calories or anything. I just want you to send me photos of what you're eating, and I'm just going to correct and say, could we do this a little bit better? Could we do that a little bit better? So it's like, right, I'm having that, right, could we add some vegetables to it? Again, pushing that, because when you get that food quality right, it's so much easier then to actually just reduce the numbers and push forward anyway.
But people are just in such bad habit of eating certain things, and this is what it's about. Sometimes it's about breaking these habits. And like you say, it's very hard for people sometimes to break habits if they're still hungry. So if you're having to go through hunger and you're having to eat, only whole foods, but you're starving, now you've got a reason to not do it. Now you've got a reason to jack it in. This isn't working for me. I'm always hungry. This is no good. But if I say to you, we can eat as much as you want, there's no reason to be hungry. Go for it. Now you've not got that excuse. Now you're actually probably really full of energy. And you're breaking the cycle of reaching for the biscuits and the meal deals at lunchtime and all this sort of stuff. So, like you say, the first part of it sometimes is literally just that. It's just breaking habits.
And I think as well, the science behind it, which is probably a different topic for a different day, but the hormones, what happens to your hormones when you eat certain foods, like high palatable foods, we are going to crave them over and over again. Don't get me wrong, if you eat a nice chicken salad, you do go, I'd have one of them, but we don't go back to the fridge and make it, because it's sufficed us, it's give us what we need, and we're just happy to just right away to my next meal. Most people eat a McDonald's, and it gives you that feeling of, well, I want that again. You just you're chasing that, you need to feed that craving. And with whole foods, you don't get that. Whole foods and a proper diet gives you the feeling that you need. It makes you feel full. It gives you the nutrients that you need. And again, you're not just sat craving meal after meal after meal.
And use the energy as well. And once we've dialed food quality in, the next step that we would take is to look at the macros. Okay, because whether you're trying to burn body fat or whether you're trying to build muscle, we want a high protein diet, right? That's for the majority of people that come to a program like us, or that are probably looking at this because they're actually interested in changing the way they eat and how they look and how they feel. A high protein diet is probably the way to go for them, right? So, we need to make sure that the macros are on point. So once we've taken eat what you want from this food, now we're going to try and just move it around a little bit and say, okay, you've eaten what you wanted, but you're still quite carb heavy. Okay, so now we're going to try and chop a little bit of carbs and add a little bit of protein, and we're going to really start to look at that. When can we bring in more healthy fats, and all this sort of stuff, and just start to look. And like I say, I suppose carbs and fats are interchangeable, right, at this point for the majority of people. But we need to make sure we're getting that protein.
Yeah, so obviously after the initial phase of, like Stu just said, eat what you want, most commonly we'll just then go protein. And this is obviously what we do with the 8-week guys, isn't it? We focus so much on protein and calories, because it's like in most fat loss phases, like you've just said, they're interchangeable. Protein is something that just most men don't eat, do they? We're just a lot of the majority. How many?
It's all. Do you know what? Any of my clients, when they're first starting out, they always struggle with getting enough protein in the diet. It's a very common thing. Obviously, we deal a lot with. It's all men in the Mansformation, but even I've got female clients in person and stuff like this. A lot of them struggle to get the right amount of protein in there, and they can't understand how they can get the protein levels up, so that can be a bit of an issue. And certainly to any new bunch of clients that we get, that is one of the things that that normally is an initial sticking point for them, because they think they're doing well, but I think we're probably so used to eating such a carb heavy diet that it's a little bit alien to them to get that protein level as high as what it actually needs to be.
Well, I was going to say, most commonly, most people just go straight to like beige foods or stuff like that, or like you spoke about sandwiches. And when we get people to track, it is so highlighting that the carb count is so high. And then that's the way I would approach that with them, is then I look and commonly we might see someone and they've got like, say, chicken and rice, and they might have 300 grams of rice and 50 grams of chicken. And I'm like, at any point of the diet, unless you're in a massive bulk, you still want more chicken, but we need that in a fat loss phase to be so much higher than the carb count. Yeah. So it's like you need to really flip on the head. I'm not saying have 300 grams of chicken, but you want to go 150 to 200 as a minimum. And then obviously your carbs want to come down, because protein is obviously going to make you feel full. And that's obviously the education, what we're going to with the guys as well.
The third thing that we would then go with would be calories. And by default, if we focused on the first two, if we focused on food quality, if we focused on dialing in our macros, like you say, as a byproduct of that, the calories have kind of come down a little bit lower anyway. So, but yeah, this is at that point, that's when we're going to look at, kind of restricting the calories a little bit, because they've already started to build better habits around the nutrition.
And like you say, it's the right way to go. And this is how we see the good results that we do, is because, like you just said, the most common of the people that we coach are already losing weight just focusing on the two things. Because no one, and we've said this how many times on previous calls we've done for clients or on new starter calls, like, it's so hard to eat 2,500 calories every single day of the right foods. Yes, if you've got a huge appetite, it's not hard. But most people, if you say, right, 2,500 to 3,000 calories, go eat that, but I only want you to eat X, Y, and Z, like we said around them, like food sources. Most people will not do it on a day-to-day basis. So if they're then training and they're doing the steps and they've got an active job, they are then just going to start losing weight anyway. So when we ask them to restrain that and go, right, let's pull back a little bit on calories, they haven't got massive amounts of hunger because we've cut out the crappy food quality. They're actually just really in a good place. Their energy's high, and it's like, all right, do you know what? And let's just take 50 calories out of each meal to start with, or like 100 calories. And because in this first instance, when we've looked at macros, people who are like, say, adding fats in and the calorie count's huge, because like you say, they might be having nuts, quite a misconception. It's like, right, let's change that for something else. The job's either already half done. So it's just a case of, like you say, refining that even more and just dropping down. But by that point, I feel like we're already yielding good results and they're already on a good trajectory.
Yeah. And so that leaves us with the final sort of step in building the meal plan, which is optimizing meal timings. And that's around things like training, around things like sleep. You know, there's, again, we'll probably go into a podcast that dives into that a little bit deeper. But at that point, we can then say, okay, well, maybe we need to put extra carbs at this point of your day. We might need to go, okay, we're going to just go protein and fats at here. We might have to look at how the client actually is feeling, you know, and how they are responding, because maybe as they're getting times of tiredness or times of hunger at certain points in the day. And then we need to optimize the meal timings around that to kind of, negate that. So that would be probably the last step in all of them. But again, every time we're doing another step, the other step kind of becomes easier and easier to do.
Yeah, so I think like this is like it's a sprinkle on the top in it, this. And I think this is what really levels up people's transformations, and it's most common like pre and post workout. But like you've just said, son, if someone is having a massively high carb breakfast who's not training till 6 p.m. at night, typically they're going to feel like crap mid-morning, and they're going to hit that slump because them carbohydrates have just not been utilised, they've been sat at a desk working. So like when we get to that point, they're already flying, and we would then change it up so more so like training day, non-training days and stuff like that, because we just really want to get them like 1 to 10% extra out of their workouts. So again, it's just, if someone's training on an evening, do we need loads of carbs after? Science says yes, because it's going to help a recovery protocol, but then if you're going to bed an hour later, it's not really fitting the bill for that person. And
that's why you've got to optimise the meal timings around their current lifestyle, and again, it comes back to proper planning and make sure that you've got everything in place that you need. So like you said, we just wanted to cover today some of the nutrition strategies that are out there for people to use and some of the different approaches that there are to use. And obviously, like the way that we prioritise importance when we're thinking about making a plan that's going to be for the long term. And a lot of the stuff we've said there is we're doing one step, we're doing food quality. And then once that's nailed, then we're going to, dial in the macros. Then we're going to look at the calories. It's a process to get to this point, and it requires patience, because yes, you could change all 4 of them in one go. But again, you can lead to overwhelm, you can lead to burnout, and you can lead to people not sticking to the plan. And I'm sure there's plenty of people here that are listening to this podcast that have tried plans before that they've just, they haven't even lasted a week on, because it's not realistic. And sometimes you have to start slow and just layer the habits on. And that's what we're looking at doing with this order of importance. So, anything you need to add to that?
Just like, well, you've just used the word long term, so it's like with that comes with consistency. So regardless of whether you're doing step 1, step 2, or step 3 or 4, you've got to do it for a longer period of time, and that's eating the wrong way didn't get you to where you are by just doing it for a week. You've consistently done that, so it's a case of, to revert that, we've got to improve the habits in a positive manner consistently over time, and the results will come. Yeah.
So I hope that's given you a bit of an idea, like you say, of some of the nutrition strategies that are out there, and the way to kind of build your own nutrition plan if that's something that you're looking to do. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.
Cheers.